Ladies and gentlemen, 2 years ago, one of Punjab's most popular and controversial rappers was ambushed at his aunt's village and pumped with 30 bullets. This was a gang war playing out in broad daylight, one that left the 28-year-old singer dead on the spot. 22 months after losing their firstborn, Sidhu Moosewala's mother gave birth to a baby boy 48 hours ago. The happy occasion made news because the mother is 58 and the father is 60. Both Charan Kaur and Balkaur Singh said they wanted a child because they wanted to fill the void Sidhu Moosewala had left behind. The baby had come via IVF. But 2 days later, the baby's birth has sparked a controversy. The couple has accused the Punjab government of harassing them and asking them to prove if the baby is legitimate or not. The Punjab government in turn is saying it's the central government that has sent them a notice and asked them to investigate if rules were flouted when the baby was conceived.
प्रशासन सवेर तो मैनू परेशान कर रहा इस गल लई भी तुसी अपने इस बच्चे दे सानू डॉक्यूमेंट पेश करो इस बच्चे नू लीगल साबित करन लई मैनू तरह तरह के सवाल पूछे जा सकें.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, IVF is a lifeline of hope for couples who cannot conceive a child. But the rules around it are very clear. There is an age limit for IVF. No woman above the age of 50 and no man above the age of 55 can get the procedure done. Now, the government of India wants to know if rules were flouted by Sidhu Moosewala's parents. Now, reports had suggested that they had travelled abroad for the treatment, but the picture tweeted out of the newborn actually, and there it is, are from a hospital in Bhatinda. So is it okay then, and is it legal then, for older parents to seek IVF treatment abroad and then deliver the baby here in India? And can the government of India really regulate till what age people can have babies via IVF? After all, look at the examples before us. In 2021, a 71-year-old in Kutch gave birth to her first child, courtesy IVF. 2 years before that, a 73-year-old from Andhra Pradesh had given birth to twin girls, again using IVF. But a new legislation brought in December 2021 prohibits women above 50 to use IVF. This is called the Assisted Reproductive Technology Act. Under it, fertility clinics that offer IVF and surrogacy procedures can only give services to women aged between 21 and 50 and men between 21 and below 55. But as I said, are these rules even fair? What is the reason that these rules were put in place and have Sidhu Moosewala's parents actually flouted the law here in India? I'm being joined by two people who know the science well and the law well as well. Dr. Satish Prasad Rath is a doctor, he's a scientist as well. He's someone who specializes in reproductive care. Thank you very much. And Radhika Thapar Bahl is founder of the Fertility Law Care. She's joining us on the broadcast as well. Dr. Rath, can I ask you this? Were laws flouted? I ask you this question because reports are telling us, we are not sure, but reports are telling us that Sidhu Moosewala's parents had travelled abroad to seek IVF treatment. But then they come back and deliver the baby in Bhatinda. Is that something that the law in India gives a go-ahead to?
Thanks, Shreya. And this is an important topic. And I appreciate that, you always bring up the important topics. So there are two angles here. One is for the patient. One is for the service provider, which is the fertility clinic, and then one is for the regulation. So I think, I will leave the regulation part to my regulatory, specialist who is there on the panel, Ms. Radhika.
Correct.
But is it possible science-wise? Yes, it is very much possible. And, is there a ART Act, which prohibits people more than 50 years for female and more than 55 years for male? Yes, that's absolutely correct. Now, I really like the opening remark. What you said is, should there be a law like this? So why we create these kind of laws? If we understand this based on science, as the age progresses, especially around 50 for female and then 55 for men, I think the gonads, like the sperms and the eggs, become more and more fragile. They are more prone for getting into, let's say, inborn errors, or the baby might get actually some developmental anomalies. So which is a problem what we want to prevent. Also, after the 50-year or 55-year of the parents, I think it is difficult for them also to rear a child. That's what we consider, thinking at 1980s or 1990s. But I think to reproduce is a biological right as well as a humanity right for patients. And because science has progressed so much, so there
Correct.
should not be a blanket law. I feel it is always good to have a threshold that 50 and 55 are the average rules. But there can be exceptions where, let's say, parents are wishing to have a baby after 50 and 55. There are specialized cases like they are losing their kids out of accidents, or let's say they are having cancer, or they are having something else, or some. There can be so many permutations and combinations, the possibilities. That
Correct.
ideally should be discussed
Correct.
under a medical board,
Okay.
certified medical board, and should not be a blanket law. That's what I feel.
Okay, Radhika, what Dr. Rath is saying is something that is traditional wisdom as well. That the later in life you have a child, the more at risk is the mother and the baby. We all understand that. But just take, for example, Sidhu Moosewala's parents' case. They lose a 28-year-old to 30 bullets in a gang war. They say they are feeling the void. They say they feel the need for a child who will fill that void. They go ahead for IVF. I want to ask you whether the government of India and the government of Punjab are well within their rights to come knocking at their doors 48 hours after the baby is born and ask them, is this child legitimate or not?
I come to address this part. Before that, I would like to bring to the knowledge of the viewers the basic law around it. Okay, so the ART Act, which India adopted 2 years back, 2022 was when India enforced this act. After this act, there is a stipulated age. Now, let's understand that Indian government has a right to make a law regulating its land, its country. Okay, so this matter, when the couple is saying that they have gone to Dubai and they have done the procedure there, so in that space, Indian government does not have the power to say that they have violated the law. Having said that, whether it is genuinely done like this or not, the Indian government has very well the power to investigate the matter. Okay, so the Indian government, because just by saying that the couple took the treatment in Dubai does not solve the purpose. The Indian government has the power enough to give a show cause notice and ask the couple. I just want to counsel the couple and tell through this news to the couple, just take it as at peace. It's a government inquiry. It's not always necessary that when the government does a questioning, it's always finding a fault with you and, giving its verdict. The government has asked such questions to you because the government has adopted a law in India. And if the procedure is carried out in India, then very well they have violated it. And they do not want. And if they have violated the law, it will set a very wrong precedent.
Okay, but here's the point. Here's the question I want to ask you. Reproducing is a fundamental right. Dr. Rath just said this on the show. Then can the law be challenged? That who's the government of India to tell us at what age we can get an IVF treatment done and deliver a child? Look, everyone understands the health repercussions, especially elderly parents. If they still want to go for that choice, should that choice then, Radhika, not be the couple's? They understand the risks at play.
Yes, certainly. But, do we know that fundamental rights are not absolute? The fundamental rights, the Indian government, very well under the Constitution, has the power to put reasonable restriction Now, whether the restriction is reasonable or not is challenged under the law. Whether what we are talking that whether a 55-year age should be there or a 50-year age capping should be there, whether this restriction that this age is capped, beyond this if you are doing it is violation. Whether this putting of clause is a very well a reasonable restriction by the law, none of your fundamental rights, even traveling abroad, your passports can be confiscated if you are doing something violative of the laws. You have the fundamental right to travel, you have the fundamental right for various many things. But our governments have the power to restrict them reasonably.
Okay, Dr. Satish Rath then, and I have exactly 20 seconds, but it's not like elderly people or elderly women aiming to have children have been unsuccessful at it. I was just quoting to our viewers the case of a 73-year-old farmer from Andhra Pradesh, goes through IVF, delivers twin girls. Then in Kutch, a 71-year-old, before the act came into play, delivers her first child. And in both cases, the baby and the mother are both doing fine. You know, if the women can, I mean, I just don't see the harm. If IVF can give some happiness to a 70-year-old, why stop it?
So I would just say that this much, Shreya, is science is advancing very fast. Like, before the first IVF baby was born, also there were no regulations around IVF. So regulations are always done so that, there is no misuse of the science. The science space has been always, very, very fast. And then after that, we do regulation. We do regulation for the safety of the patients. We do regulation for the safety of the providers, as well as we do regulations for our country's legislation. We should be having an open mind that, what can be the other special cases. And ART Act, after being enacted, has been modified also. So government has been also open to the feedbacks of the specialists and the scientists and the doctors. So I would assume that, our government also is going to be a little more, open-minded. Like for the abortion laws, we still see that, laws has been changing from US to India and everywhere. Same way, I think, IVF is an industry which will be seeing multiple modification of the legislation. After all, for the betterment of the patients and the doctors and the country. So that's what, I can see as a positive
thing. True. You have to say this, India has some of the most progressive laws as far as abortion is concerned. Let's have a little more progressive laws as far as IVF is concerned. Because after all, if a couple in their 50s and 60s is planning to go in for the birth of a child, they are aware of what they are getting into. Let them make the choice. But again, there are rules that need to be followed in a country as well. So this is a debate that will carry on. Dr. Rath, thank you very much for joining us. Radhika Thapar, thank you very much for joining us as well. Ladies and gentlemen, on that note, I'm slipping into a quick break on the show. Up next, why are we an unhappy country? The UN is telling us we are fairly unhappy and miserable. Should we believe that? That's coming up next. Do stay with us.